What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I've got a special one for you guys. I've decided to create a video paying tribute to the greatest Six Nations rugby players of all time. Now obviously this is, in my opinion, we all will have our own favourites and own players who we feel deserve a position. Obviously wherever you come from, your country, you might favour your birth country over others, but for me personally, as a foreigner who comes from South Africa, I've chosen my top rugby players that played in the Six Nations, who I feel gave it the absolute all for their respective country. Now we're going back obviously some years where some of you, the youngsters, may not even know who I'm talking about. A lot of the older generation will know, a lot of the generation my age will know quite a few of these players I've mentioned, but two of the players are one of my rugby heroes that you will see, and I will mention it as we go along. Reason why I'm doing this video is because we're building up to the Six Nations of 2019. I honestly think this tournament this year is going to be one of the biggest, because we're building up to, again, one of the biggest Rugby World Cups. Rugby is changing, it's getting exciting. More and more people are starting to enjoy the game, and this year particularly I think it's going to be one of the most competitive tournaments in Six Nations as well as in the Rugby World Cup, because everyone is showing up, everyone is giving their absolute all for their respective country and showing, putting their hands up, especially the minnows, especially the teams that you may not think could win the World Cup, but they are there to raise their hands and show the world, hey, I'm here not to play games, I'm here to play rugby and to prove a point. And teams like in the Six Nations, like your Scotlands, your France, will be wanting to put their hands up and show the world that we can give it their absolute all, whereas you'd see Ireland, England as favourites to really go far in the World Cup. And let's not forget Wales as well, because they are growing and developing as we speak and as we watch them play from last year. And I'm excited to see what they're going to bring to rugby in 2019. So today's video is to pay tribute to my favourite players from the Six Nations, and players who I think deserve a position in the 15 players squad. And obviously this is combined from all the teams in Six Nations. Obviously one country I have unfortunately left out, I'm sure you'll know who that is, but it's a hard thing to choose, and you'll see it probably as you go along. A lot will favour from their home countries. When I say favour, you guys who are watching, you might support, be an Irishman or an Englishman, so you will favour that, which is right. You are well within your right to do that. For me as a South African, I've chosen who I think are the best players in Six Nations rugby. Now we will obviously agree to disagree, but that's what the comment section is there for. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, who your squad is and who you would rather have in positions that I've maybe put in that you don't agree with. But let's get started for player number one. So number one, my first prop is Jason Leonard, an Englishman who has really given it his all. He's got a great name in world rugby, he's got a great name in English rugby. I haven't watched the man play a lot of rugby, but I know what he's achieved and what he's done within the English rugby, and he's definitely one of the best in his position. I mean, we've obviously got so much competition in this position to choose from, but for me, Jason Leonard for England stood out. He's helped them in good times, bad times, and I believe is a deserved number one in my squad. Number two, I've gone with former Irish captain Keith Wood, a true legend of the game. He's given his absolute all to Irish rugby. He was such a tough player. Now, when I started getting into rugby, he was pretty much in his retirement stage, but I do remember watching games where he gave it his all. He was always in it to win it. He was always trying to win the ball. Great hooker of the game, had his moments. Also, all players have good times and bad times, but for me, Keith Wood was a true legend who gave his absolute all to Irish rugby and was a true ambassador to the sport, to his country, and I really think he's one of the greatest hookers of his time, or of time of history, because he really did give it his absolute all. Tough as all nails, really hard player who succeeded in so many ways for Ireland in the good and bad times. So he is my number two. The 3, I've gone with Adam Jones. Now here's a Welsh veteran who also another true ambassador of Welsh rugby, who gave it his absolute all. I have seen him play before. Another hard fighting player, brilliant in the scrums, brilliant at getting the ball, great tackler, hard also as nails, tough as nails, who really gave it all in Six Nations rugby, whether it was international rugby playing against the Box or whoever it may be. I do remember this guy, and how I remember him is always the hair. The hair as a youngster growing up, watching him, also growing up in my olderish ages of teenagehood. I watched this guy and his hair stood out, and that was a strong memory for me while watching this man play, but also the toughness that he can bring to the field, his strength and ability that he offers, and also the pride of playing Welsh rugby. There's a special photo of him on Google where he's quite emotional in the national anthem, and you guys know me if you've been here for a while. When it comes to the national anthem and you show your passion and love for the game, you're a winner in my heart. So he is my number 3. Number 4, I've gone with Paul O'Connell, another former Irish captain and probably one of the greatest Irish locks in history for Ireland. He played for the Lions, he captained the Lions, he's done absolutely everything in his career. Obviously it's sad that injury led him to retirement, but man, this guy, another true ambassador, hard, tough as nails, a true pure athlete who gave it his absolute all, whether it was the lineouts, whether it was in defence, attack. He just gave it his all. Paul was one of those who would fight till the death. Sometimes you'd see him looking buggered on the field, sometimes you'd see him looking ready on the field, but every single performance that you watched this man play, he gave it his absolute all. There's a lot of people who still talk about Paul O'Connell. You see him on the TV and interviews and all that jazz. True ambassador, and I'm gutted that injury got him just before that World Cup, because I think he could have really given it all. And he another true ambassador of Irish rugby, and definitely one of the greats who has achieved so much, and in my opinion could have achieved way more if injury hadn't got in the way of him. But a true awesome player, and definite number 4 for me. Now number 5, I think we all would have agreed, would have disagreements here, maybe put him 4 and Paul 5, but I've gone with Martin Johnson number 5. I know he played 4 as well, but for me I have to include both players because both gave it their absolute all for their country. Now Martin Johnson, known also as a bit of a thug, dirty player at times, but a hard fighting player who was passionate about the game, gave it his absolute all for English rugby, who just fought till the death, till the end. He even coached, he didn't have the greatest record as coach, but he gave it his all. He was always determined. He was a good stealer of the ball. He was a good tackler, sometimes a bit dangerous and dodgy, but a true amazing player. Obviously one of his highlights would be winning Six Nations as captain for his team, but not only that, taking the World Cup as captain for England in 2003. Strong memory for me. I remember watching that game, Australia versus England, with my late grandfather. A special memory for me because it was one of the first games that him and I got to watch alone, and I remember so clearly watching 1, Jonny Wilkinson do the drop goal, and 2, Martin Johnson lifting the trophy to help England go on. Another ambassador for English rugby who gave it his absolute all for his country and played till the absolute end, and was a great player in world rugby, and he's mine number 5. Number 6, forgive me if I get this pronunciation wrong, I've gone with Thierry Dusautoir. Also a former French captain. He retired not too long ago, but this man achieved so much in French rugby, in good times and in bad times. Tough as nails, going for it at his absolute best. He really went through and through in every game, giving it his all, be it in the tackle, be it in trying to win the ball back, be it on a run, lineouts, all that jazz. This man gave it his all. He was a good leader for the French team. You could see it when they were under pressure. He would always be there to build this team up. And a strong memory for me with Thierry is when the final, when the All Blacks won, I think it was 2011 against France, when the All Blacks did the haka, he led the arrow of the French team that stood watching the haka, and it was so powerful and passionate because you could see the emotion within this man. You could see the belief that they could maybe beat the All Blacks. Unfortunately for them, they didn't. But you could see the difference, the passion and the electricity that came from the atmosphere of the crowd, but also the determination in him wanting to take his team all the way and win the Rugby World Cup. But I mean, a great ambassador in Six Nations Rugby, giving it his all as captain, giving it all as player, and one of the French's greatest players in world rugby. He really gave it his absolute all, and then for me is a deserved number 6. Number 7, I've gone with the recent retiree as well, who retired last year, Mr. Sam. He gave it his absolute all for Welsh rugby. There was a lot of heartbreaks when he retired because of what he offered for not only the Welsh but for Lions rugby as well, giving it his absolute all, fighting till the end. Again, and I keep repeating myself, but another ambassador for his country, showing every performance and trying to better himself every time when on that field, be it in good times or bad times. He was there to take the Welsh team, lead them into the circumstance of trying to win a game or come back or handle under pressure or be it under a loss. He was there giving it his all. Now that photo is not the greatest of him, but you could see the emotion in his face, which is why I chose it, to show how much playing for his country meant for him, playing for his team and playing as a player against the opponents. You could play the game, and for me this is quite a powerful image, and I think he is a deserved number 7 in my squad. Absolute legend of the game. Now obviously you guys might go further back and bring in other players to replace him. Please feel free, but for me, what I've seen from him is a deserved position in my squad, and he is my number 7. Now I think this is where quite a few of us will have disagreements. I've gone with Sebastien Chabal, who absolutely was a hell of a force in French rugby. He was such a tough rugby player. His tackling was brilliant when he got the ball, and he just rammed through every single player that was in his sight. Was truly remarkable of what he could achieve as a player. The strength of the man, the toughness of the man, and the ability to do whatever he could to help French rugby win, to help them even in a time of loss. He was there giving it his all. Again, the hair is a memory for me, because you watch this man hit it and you just see the hair wave. It was insane what this man could do, and for me is a true ambassador once again to French rugby. What he did on the field was powerful, and I mean, not only for France. I remember watching him provincial level doing the exact same thing, and I mean, he wasn't the youngest bloke when he retired, but he still gave it his absolute all on the field, and I have a strong memory of him, and for me a deserved number 8. A lot would have gone with Lawrence Delalio or some other guys, but for me I've gone with Chabal. I just think he was an outstanding player. We are blessed with so many fantastic scrum halves. This is my favourite position. I just love watching a scrum half play, and although I didn't watch this man play, I've watched brief highlights of it, and I've read articles, I've seen photos of what this man can do. Not only that, he's got a fantastic first name. Gareth Edwards is my scrum half, all the way from Wales, another true ambassador for the game, giving it his absolute all for Welsh rugby. There's obviously so many other players in this category, but for me, watching what Gareth's stats are and what he's achieved for Welsh rugby, and the movement, and through the good and the tough times, I think he's a deserved number 9. One of the greatest scrum halves in world rugby, and for me, one of the greatest in the Six Nations as well. Now, obviously, there's a lot of competition here, but I decided to go with Gareth Edwards, a true force, a true hero for Welsh rugby, a true hero of the game, and one of the world's greatest. So he is my number 9. Number 10, we get to my favourite rugby player of all time. I've copied this guy, I've watched this guy from since I was young. Like I said to you earlier, that 2003 Rugby World Cup final was an important memory of rugby for me, watching it with my late grandfather, but watching Jonny Wilkinson was the true highlight of it all. Now, I'm not a big fan or supporter of English rugby. I've got a hell of a lot of respect for them, but I'm a massive, massive supporter of Jonny Wilkinson. Whatever he did, he could do right. If he played against South Africa, it wouldn't hurt me as much when he would do a drop goal or a kick, except if it was in the World Cup final. But this guy he's just the king of fly-offs. Obviously, we've got the Dan Carters, Andrew Mertens. Don't get me wrong, no disrespect to any of those guys, but for me in Six Nations rugby, even in World Rugby, he is one of the best fly-offs ever. Again, gutted for this man. That injury got to him and was a big factor in his career. He missed out on a few games, especially after the 2003 World Cup. He was out, then he came back in 2007. Went out again, but wasn't the same as what he was in his peak from the early 2000s. I mean, Jonny Wilkinson gave so much to the game. One of England's highest point scorers, the drop goal king. He invented this. This was Jonny Wilkinson. He was, what a player. True ambassador. One of my favourite rugby players. You can give me any historic team, Jonny will always be a part of my team, be it in the bench or be it in the starting lineup. You won't see a team for me without Jonny Wilkinson. If I have to do a world team, great player and it deserved number 10 in my opinion. 11, I've gone with the little maestro, Shane Williams. Not only is this guy one of the quickest rugby players ever to have watched. I mean, Brian Abana was quick and brilliant and all that stuff, but Shane Williams was something special. Why was he special? Because of his height, and this is why I've got so much respect and time for this guy, because I myself am not a tall person. I'm a dwarf, I'm a short person. So watching someone like that, yes, he's not a dwarf, but he was so short in the field. Watching him achieve so much in rugby inspired me to go out there as well and give out my play the sport or play any sport and go out there and reach for the stars and achieve my dreams. And Shane Williams is a true ambassador of that. He's a true ambassador of to all people who are discriminated by or who get bullied because of their size. Shane was a true champion. He could outrun any bloody blinking rugby player on the field. He was quick, he was dynamic, he was smart, he was genius, and don't get me wrong, he could also tackle as well. He could do it all. Shane Williams is my number 11 and also one of the best wings in world rugby. He is a champion. I've gone with the Englishman, Will Greenwood, another true legend of English rugby, one of the top centres who gave it his absolute all for his country. Special moments for him, obviously being a part of England in their good times. Obviously there were times when they lost and didn't do so great, but Will Greenwood is a great rugby player and gave it his absolute all for his country, and this is my number 12. 13 is the one and only, another big rugby hero, favourite of mine, Brian O'Driscoll, one of Ireland's best centres, one of the best captains, players, everything. Brian O'Driscoll gave it his absolute all in Ireland. He fought to the end. He was emotional, he was passionate, he was respectful, he was quick, he was a strong defender. He has it all. Brian O'Driscoll was one of the best. He played for the Lions, he played for Ireland, he played for Leinster. He is just one of my favourite Irish rugby players, a hero, an ambassador to his country and to his nation, to the fans. Brian O'Driscoll is my number 13 and deservedly so. Number 14, I've gone with another small man, but so quick, so brilliant. Also a strong memory in the World Cup final. Clayton Robinson, he's number 14. Brilliant at everything he's done. Achieved so much in his career. World Cup winner. True brilliance. I remember playing with him in the rugby games. He was brilliant. He was quick and achieved so much. Amazing player. Number 14. Right, so number 14, I've gone with the English winger slash fullback, former England international rugby player, Jason Robinson, a true, unbelievable ambassador, epic player of English rugby. He gave it his absolute all. Another special memory, as I mentioned, in the 2003 Rugby World Cup final, Jason Robinson was there and was a huge impact for English rugby. He gave it his all. He was quick, he was dynamic, the way he moved, the way he defended was truly inspirational. Another guy who wasn't the tallest of players on the field, but had the biggest heart and gave it his absolute all. Watching that man score a try, what I really liked about Jason Robinson was the way he just would run and then quickly dodge through players. It was outstanding to watch. He really was an unbelievable player for England and gave it his absolute utmost. He was passionate. He had the respect for the game. He was determined to do anything and everything on that field. Be it scoring a try, be it running, be it tackling, be it even passing. He was a true inspiration to all rugby fans and an unbelievable player for me, deservedly number 14. Last but certainly not least, I've gone with the Scotsman Gavin Hastings as my number 15. Now obviously you guys will all have your own opinions on fullback, just as you will have maybe your own opinion on all the players that I've mentioned, but Gavin Hastings was one of the Scottish greats. He was a true fantastic rugby player who was a fullback. My dad was telling me stories about him of how brilliant he was as a rugby player, and he grew up watching, or he's watched him in the time when because obviously he was born in Scotland, so he knows quite a little bit about Scottish rugby, but he remembers Gavin Hastings and just an unbelievable rugby player on and off the field. Another ambassador for Scotland who gave it his absolute all. I mean, if you look him up, they say one of the Scottish rugby greats. So another fantastic rugby player. I unfortunately didn't get to see him play, but reading up on him and checking the stats and reading how much respect is given towards this great rugby player is truly remarkable, and that is why I've made him my number 15. So that's going to do it for the squad. Here's one more look at my full 15 of my greatest Six Nation players in my personal opinion. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Something different, another Six Nations video to bring out before as we build up for this epic tournament that is going to be one to remember as we watched 6 great nations fight for the ultimate prize and fight till the end to prove that they are here to stay and here to fight, and also to put their hands up and say, hey, we are contenders of winning the Rugby World Cup. It's going to be an unbelievable Six Nations tournament, so make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any other videos coming up. There's a few more coming up, so make sure you subscribe before we hit Six Nations. So subscribe, hit the bell notification. I'll see you guys real soon for another video. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, never give up, and remember, you're one of a kind. Cheers.